think stress plays a very big role in not only just your performance in the classroom, but your performance on the court, and then also with your health. And I find myself getting sick more when I'm more stressed.
It was a crazy freshman year. I just had a lot of health problems. I struggled with my mental health, emotional, physical.
I tend to think that things like that are more complex than just one variable. I don't think that stress is always what's going to be causing poor performance. But there were plenty of times when I was very stressed as an athlete and as a student when I performed less than optimally, especially in athletics.
I mean, personally, what stresses me out the most is just knowing that I'm behind on work. If I miss an assignment or something, I think that can really stress me out. Or the athlete aspect of it, I guess, is maybe not knowing what to do, or if I haven't studied my playbook enough and not knowing the play correctly. I think that's probably what stresses me out the most.
One of the most stressful moments in my life was my sophomore spring. Actually, I was just coming off of not as good of a season as I had performed previously, and I knew my coaches were expecting more out of me, and I was just really trying to do better and improve that spring. And I was also taking some really tough classes at the time, and my grades weren't where I wanted them to be. And I think stressing about my performance on the court and then also my grades and my GPA and things like that really just started to bring those down even more. And I was just sad a lot, and I was sick all the time because I couldn't sleep well and I couldn't concentrate. And because I couldn't sleep well, I was still not performing well at practice, and not performing well at practice and not sleeping well, I couldn't focus in class, and just everything started to spiral downhill.
So I think probably the most stressed I've felt as a student athlete is definitely the body image. That really is stressful, especially being a track athlete. We have a certain physique, body fat percentage, muscle definition and tone that we feel we need, or it's proven that we need to be successful. That's kind of what caused my eating disorder. And now 3.5 years later, I've just been surrounded by so much support, my weight coach and trainer and then event coach. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, I'm supposed to have this muscle definition, this body fat percentage, but at the same time, they remind me, yes, Drea, that is what track athletes need, but you're performing, so you need to pay attention to performance rather than body image and what you think you need to look like.
I remember being on the course at DU, and I felt so overwhelmed, and I just remember thinking about how blessed I was to be able to do what we do, and that's sort of what got me through all the stress, was just remembering I get to do this, and this was an opportunity I was afforded to me that isn't afforded to a lot of people. And I looked at it through a sense of gratitude, and that's what helped me overcome that stress.
I don't think I struggle with it as much, just because I've learned to kind of plan ahead of time, so I don't get to those instances where I have an incredible amount of stress.
I feel like the times I have been stressed to the point where I have noticed it, it seemed very overwhelming at that moment, but I was able to take some time to step away from it and then kind of full circle look at everything that I needed to get done or that was on my mind.
I mean, I've coped with it by talking to my coordinator, talking to coaches and friends, because they're definitely there to help and support you if you're really feeling stressed out on anything.
I saw a sports psychologist, and for me it was awesome to have that third perspective. It's not somebody who's my coach, not somebody who's my teammate or my parent, who are kind of more personally invested in what's going on, but somebody who can just kind of give me tools and different coping mechanisms that are maybe different than what I've used in the past. It's amazing how many people are struggling and they don't reach out, but I think even if you're not really struggling with things that much, it can still be really helpful to reach out to someone who's a professional, or talk to your teammates, because most of them, especially older teammates, have probably gone through the same thing that you're going through.
I'd say I typically get about 6 hours of sleep.
I average about 7 hours of sleep.
I probably get around 7 hours of sleep.
I typically get around 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night.
I try to get 8 hours. In the best case, I get around 9. In the worst, it's like 6, 5.
So with priorities, I prioritize my sleep. You need to have that sleep for recovery. Like if you're not sleeping, that's how you get injured easier, and like your body can't recover from like the Olympic lift that you did the night before.
Sleep does play a very important part in how I perform the next day, and I can definitely see that.
I really try to have good nutrition because I know how important that is, and I know that I don't feel good when I'm not eating well, or I'm snacking all the time instead of eating a solid meal.
Usually when it's off season, I let myself to eat more like whatever I would like to eat. And during the season, I would say I try to eat more healthier and something that will give me energy.
I think when you talk to wrestlers about diet, there's probably a few things that come to mind. It's probably not what I did. Most wrestlers will be cutting weight, and so you get a different story from them. And I should give a plug to those guys and say I think they do a good job. I think they cut weight the appropriate way. I, on the other hand, was trying to gain weight.
So freshman year, I actually had a really big problem with keeping weight on. Because I do have trouble keeping weight on, if I craved, I would eat just because any food I was getting into my body was gonna help me stay at weight or get up to weight.
Now I eat to fuel my body. Like my freshman year, it was kind of more to satisfy cravings, but as I've been here, I've learned that it's important to fuel your body because you are active and you need that energy to get through your day.
Fueling my body now, but definitely my first couple of years here, I was eating just because I wanted cookies, or I wasn't necessarily thinking of the long-term effects of what eating a bunch of cookies before practice would actually do.
I think the athletic department has done a good job, and especially having the resource of the nutritionist. I met with her a few weeks ago and just went through, and she gave me ideas for every single meal, for snacks, what things I can add to my diet, what things to maybe take out of my diet. Because sometimes I think the struggle of eating well is you just don't know what to eat, or you don't know what's better than other things, and so having that resource, and I use the Fueling Center every single day to get protein shakes. I really like the yogurt and fruit that we get, the bars. I use those for snacks, especially when I'm in class and I'm hungry. You don't want to just not eat, so having a healthy snack like a bar or something to provide protein and energy is really good.
Injuries, I think it just kind of comes with the territory. Like you probably wouldn't talk to one student athlete who's never had an injury, and I think it helps knowing that you're not alone in it, that everyone goes through it. And when you get injured, it's not just your body that's injured, it's your mental health that's injured too, because it's like, well, I want to be out there practicing, but I can't. I'm stuck in the training room. And then I think as student athletes, we kind of develop our sport becomes our identity where it shouldn't. And I think when we're not able to do our sport, we're like, well, what am I? Like, what am I doing then? And so I think it's frustrating with injuries, but it's also helpful knowing you're not alone in it and having the support system that we have here.
My initial reaction after I tore my ACL, I thought it was a dream. I thought it was the last thing that would ever happen to me. I feel like I have a very fit body. I do everything to prevent myself from that happening, but it's just a freak accident. No one touched me, no one did anything to me, and so I definitely blamed myself, and I felt terrible for a good 3 weeks, and then getting surgery was quite a process because of things like illness. I think I got sick a lot just with being stressed out about it, and after I got surgery, things were kind of on the uphill climb.
I just tried to stay positive throughout the whole process, do as much as I can to stay in shape and stay sharp, and just know that there's no point in me rushing back if I'm not 100%.
I would say to always try to look at the bright side, so maybe look at it as a sign that you needed a break or you needed some time to focus on school, and to always look at the glass half full rather than half empty.
I was shocked when I found out I was redshirting, and maybe for a little bit I thought it was the end of the world, but that didn't last very long. I learned very quickly that it's a really positive thing. It's something that, you don't expect, but it's for the greater good, and you just have to keep a positive mind all year long and just make yourself the best you can be on this extra year of college that you get.
It was my choice. I kind of asked to redshirt because Physically and skill-wise, I wasn't ready to compete at the Division I level. I needed to adjust to the speed of the game, the strength of the game, and just learn how to play Division I college basketball. And there's no shame in sitting out for a year because I feel like the benefits weigh out the costs in terms that sure, if you're missing out on a year, you might have to stay in school for an extra year, but you get a full year to develop yourself with a really good coaching staff. You get to get into the habit of practicing every day, going to games, traveling. And so there's just endless benefits to redshirting if you're not ready to play right away.
The number one thing that I want to give to someone coming from high school to college is give it your all. I mean, you only get 4 years, maybe 5 if you decide to redshirt. 5 years of competition, 4 years of competition, you don't get those years back. It's not something to waste. It's a wonderful opportunity. You're getting an opportunity to go to school, you're getting an opportunity to compete for your sport, and you're getting an opportunity to represent something that's bigger than you, something that's not just about you anymore, but it's about your team, it's about your family, it's about Wyoming.
I would say one thing that I'm realizing now after my sport is to just branch out. Try to just put yourself out there, join clubs, make other friends, because the people on your team are amazing, but you see them 24/7, and so it can be nice to have another friendship group.
I would say make the most of all the resources that you have at school as an athlete, and then also make the most of just your time in college because it flies by.
I'd say just know what's important to you and what isn't as important to you in terms of social life, relationships, schoolwork, athletics, because being an athlete's about sacrifice. You're not going to have time to do everything you want or do as much as you want with what you want to do. So just managing your time in relation to what you have to get done, what is important versus what isn't as much of a necessity. Will be a big key for you going into college.
I'd say have good memories. Recognize that life will move on regardless of whether or not you're in your sport. One of the hardest things for me when I stopped wrestling was not the fact that I never achieved the event goals that I had of being an All-American or a national champion, but rather that I didn't have something to train for afterwards. Like this thing that I had put 11 years of my life into, hours and hours every day in sweat and blood and tears and all these things, it was just immediately it was gone. And that to me was the hardest thing, because when you have these clear-cut goals and these clear-cut paths to get there, it's so easy to work hard. But then afterwards, when I didn't have that anymore, finding the motivation, the discipline to go and even something silly like working out. Like working out's harder for me now because I don't have anything to work out for. So find something that you can strive for, I think would be one of the best advices that I can have, whether that's your job or like if you get married and you have a family or your family or your kids or whatever. Find something to strive for, and obviously there's some things with more merit than others, but something is good to have. Find something to strive for.